Let's take a look. Why don't we go with best universe?
Oh, okay. Um, I have
What do you have
to.
here?
I got to go with The Last of Us for this one.
Part
Um,
one?
well, just in general, the games as a whole, one and two,
Sure.
and I'm assuming there's going to be a third part at some point. That really draws me into this world of all these different factions. I adored the early seasons of The Walking Dead, and this feels a lot like The Walking Dead, but uh, better. you know, you have a lot of people that are just doing whatever they can to survive. You have people that are banding together trying to make life, find a cure, all these different things. I did like the farmhouse. I know it was a slow season, but it was necessary character development. And so, yeah. But I really didn't stop watching The Walking Dead until probably the last two seasons, I want to say. So I stuck with it
Okay.
a long time, way past a lot of people did. But yeah, it does. The atmosphere does make it hard to play. I agree, Saikoro, but I think the world that they've established, as depressing as it is, just really draws me in, and I'm endlessly fascinated by seeing abandoned buildings, and especially when you see like a landmark that you recognize that is no longer accessible. So Epic Outros chimes in. He sings the atmosphere is the best part, and I have to agree.
Yeah, and I feel like it takes time. We talked about both games, especially the first one, quite a bit about the atmosphere and how
Mm,
it's very bleak and barren, and it's like this sort of apocalyptic wasteland, which
right,
it really is. It's full of abandoned buildings, like you mentioned, and it's very sort of drab.
right.
But as you kind of progress through it, it does get captivating in some weird shape or form. It's a has a strange effect, and there's a pull that does happen. And I agree with you. I think. It does deserve a Drury. I would probably give it a Willie, but
Yeah.
fuck's sake, man. Feel
um,
like I can't say it without just like thinking terrible things.
well, I mean, when you put a willy with Tifa, yeah. But like there's a quite a bit of time spent in. I guess it's the Seattle Aquarium. I'm not sure what the exact name is, but there's an aquarium that they spend a significant amount of time in that they've basically set up as some sort of a base, and just the atmosphere in how they've taken this abandoned building that was meant for kids to learn about fish and turned it into a habitable environment with doors that are blocked off and paths that are just guiding you down certain hallways to make it more difficult to get in. And even the brief amount of time that you spend in the football stadium, where you have this entire city, essentially, people eating, sleeping, working, living in a football stadium. It's a functioning city. Just truly amazing to see.
Well, I mean, think about it this way: like if you take the abandoned university in Colorado in the first game,
Mm,
it's like that sort of effect that you have when you're a teenager. You go to like an
right.
abandoned building and you're scared and you're thinking, you know what, let's get out of here.
Mm-hmm,
But
mm-hmm.
there's that part of you that's like really curious.
Yep.
And that segment too, with all like the leaves blowing in the wind because it's fall
Yep.
in terms of season, it's really cool to just kind of explore this abandoned college.
Yep.
And you're kind of afraid because you know that there's going to be some hunters and runners and clickers and all that kind of good stuff,
Oh yeah.
but at the same time you just want to explore. So I think it's worth saying that universe is worth exploring.
Yeah, and I want to see more. I want to see what else it can do. For sure.
Yeah.
Oh, the Space
For
Museum
me,
too. Yeah, I'm sorry, real quick. Yeah, that was Pencilburn chimed in with that. The Space Museum stuff. That was
is that from
like,
part two?
it is from part two, and that is
Okay.
just like absolutely heartbreaking.
Hmm.
Just truly wonderful stuff. So I'm sorry.
Maybe I'll have to YouTube it or something.
You need to play the fucking game.
I knew I was going to open that door. I was like, if I
uh,
tell him I want to YouTube it, he's just going to tell me to
no,
play it. So I
no,
probably
don't
shouldn't.
YouTube it. Don't ruin the experience for you. I don't care if it takes you 2-3 years. Don't ruin that experience. When you're ready, play the game.
You know
Um,
what's funny? It's funny you mentioned that because I've actually sort of subconsciously avoided looking at anything on that game, and I think it's because I know eventually I will play it.
and I can't wait for you to. So
For me, fuck's sake, FF7 remake.
another one.
Yeah, Midgar. I mean, I could really just drop the mic right there. It's like every area in that game is just so well presented
Mm-hmm.
and it's so absorbing for the player that you really kind of become a part of its universe. And
Mm.
I'd say the slums are generally where you spend most of your time the first half of the game, and I found those areas to be the most memorable, even though it's like depressing to know like why the people are living there and they're living below the plate, basically below the wealthy,
Mm-hmm.
and it's really depressing. But at the same time, the music and the amount of like little side quests and the miniature battles that you face and just kind of the conversations you have with all these NPCs, everything just feels really alive. And I remember when I did a review on the game, I said that it had a pulse.
Mm.
And that pulse is just, you could put your finger anywhere in that world and you're going to get that pulse wherever you go. And to be able to look up and look at that plate that I talk about so much, I just found it to be so um, well. The scale was
Yeah.
just so perfect, and it just seemed so large. And in the first game for PS1, everything was obviously smaller because it had to be.
Right.
So to take that world that was so quaint and so compact and sort of compressed, and then kind of blow it up to that scale, I felt was really special. And overall, just the entire universe of that game is just a sort of joy to explore.
Yeah. They kind of it's interesting because it's two very different feelings. I think the first game, whether it was because of design or because of limitations, it did feel very compressed, and the remake certainly does feel much more massive on this just
Yeah.
huge scale. So,
Yes, it's a little bit linear still at times, but
mm,
the fact that you can just more sort of just freely explore more easily is just something that
right.
is really worth experiencing.